Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Trahan Therapy Center where we shape minds and change lives. This is Shanna, your lovely, great, wonderful, sweet therapist here in Houston, Texas. And just reaching out to you today because I was just thinking about something as I spoke with several different clients over the past few weeks. And it's a topic that kind of has come up. So just thinking that maybe you could be a person dealing with the same thing. So, what is that thing that I'm talking about? The thing that I'm talking about is maybe you've had a family member, often a mother or a father, who might not have, in your opinion, given you the ideal upbringing, or maybe, in your opinion, did not do all that they should have done as a mom or a dad. Maybe they were in their own state of trauma, not knowing how to live and deal with that. Maybe they were using drugs. Maybe they were doing other things, just maybe working three jobs. Maybe they were more into dating and relationships and not spending time with you. Or maybe it was something else. Perhaps they handed you over to a different family member, an aunt, a grandmother, someone else to raise, and you're like, okay, but what about me? And especially people who, for instance, siblings, you got raised by the alternate relative, but your other siblings got raised by your parents, or at least lived with your parents. So maybe it wasn't a raising, maybe it was just a living, right? So each of us have different situations when we are growing up. And I don't know, honestly, if any are exactly ideal. So, and I think that that's pretty subjective based upon where you've been and what your experiences have been. So, I really want you to think from multiple perspectives about what the reality was or could have been for that other person. Because we are humans, the first thing we think about is me and my and I. What about how I felt? What about what happened with me? What about my experience because I was in place A instead of place B? What was that person's experience before you, I guess before you were born? What kind of things did they deal with in their life? And did they ever overcome or recover from the things that they dealt with before you were ever even considered being born, before that was ever a possibility? I'm not saying that everyone who doesn't do parenting according to the way that that particular child sees it should be said, you know what, you'll be exonerated. It's fine. All the terrible things you did or the great things that you did not do, we'll just say forget it. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that there's more than one side to every story, and that it is important to reach out to connect and try to understand another person's truth. It's not always going to be what we want to hear. And sometimes for us, we may feel like, oh, that's an excuse. This is an excuse. That's an excuse. But then also look back at yourself and your own position in your own situation. Have you done things that others might have found inexcusable? And if so, then that means perhaps that you should give that person the benefit of the doubt. One thing I shared with someone the other day was that I had a family member that was considerably older than me that's in heaven now, I imagine, and that person used to smoke. And how I know it is because they had pictures of them at parties smoking just regular cigarettes, and that was a thing I guess that they did when they were considerably younger. However, as they aged and became more mature and became, a wife and a grandmother and things like that, a mother, grandmother, as they became more of a grandmother, they changed their lifestyle. But when they were a mother, they were in the party mode. And so sometimes when someone is mothering, especially for the first time, I would say those little angels are really like being experimented on. Even though other people have raised kids, when you are a parent for the first time, you might have read books, but maybe those books never covered your child. Maybe those books don't know what your child's personality is going to be. And so there's no way to know what to do and how to do it other than to take on that task. And certainly many people would say the Bible certainly gives directions on raising a child. However, I guess the main point of this video is give your parents a chance. Give your grandparents a chance. Do know that no one had a perfect life all the time, and that everyone who is being saintly now may not have been saintly 20 years ago, or might not have been saintly 30 years ago. So we certainly have to open our eyes. And even though it might be difficult because maybe we've grown a relationship with this person who might have raised us, that doesn't mean that that person was saintly when they were raising their own children, right? And so maybe their lifestyle was different. Their choices could have been even questionable at that time. However, then you were born by this child, as the grandchild of that other person. And so at this point, where does that leave you? What thoughts and feelings do you have? What misgivings do you have? So the main point here is to seek to forgive and be forgiven if there's anything that perhaps you should be forgiven for, because none of us are perfect. And many of us are taking things like life one moment at a time, one day at a time, and trying to put a decent foot forward. I won't even say our best foot forward. I'll say a decent foot forward. So if you want people to love you, care about you, honor you, and forgive you, especially your mistakes, certainly, I just asked someone this morning for forgiveness and grace, and they were like, sure, no problem. And I believe that that could be because I'm so often willing to give forgiveness and grace. So I'm not perfect, far from it, but I do my best to give forgiveness and grace because I ask the same thing of others of me, okay? So hopefully you learned something today. Hopefully I have you thinking about some relationships in your life and maybe how you should consider that everything is not always what it seems, or maybe it didn't used to be that way 5, 10, 20 years ago. And so even though as a grandmother, you might be raising your grandchild, or you may be the aunt raising a child or something, maybe the way that you were raised, maybe you didn't know maybe you knew more than that other person before you, and so on and so forth. And you had different ideas, and you studied and you learned to show yourself approved of a different techniques and such. But I would just say, take it all one day at a time. Many blessings to you. I've got to get to my next session for the day. Talk to you soon. Bye now.